All right, I'm gonna be talking super fast throughout this whole video, and I wanna apologize in advance. It's just, oh man, I could go on. I can make this a 12-minute video if I really wanted to, but I don't wanna hold you here for that long. I wanna respect your sense of time. So let's go ahead and dive right in. There is no learning without memorization. Think about it. I mean, I know that you've maybe heard that before. I mean, it makes complete sense. I mean, what's the point of learning something if you're going to forget it, if you're not going to remember it? It's basically pointless. And I want to offer in this video a practical tip of advice that can help us recall the information that we want to remember, if that makes sense. I'll go more about this later. It's called the 30-second note method. And before you double tap on the home button and swipe out of YouTube and say, stop, this is not on my alley, I don't want to watch the rest, I want you to think again and consider staying with me till the end here, because my motto on this channel is sparking curiosity and infusing gratitude, because that's what I want to do for my viewers. And in this case, especially the former, if you haven't discovered yet that learning can actually be quite interesting and enjoyable, then that's exactly what I'm trying to do. And I want you to stay with me here because, oh my gosh, I started adopting that mindset 2 years ago and it completely transformed my life. I believe that there are so many benefits to adopting a lifelong learner's mindset. And because when you just have that sense of curiosity, it makes life so much more interesting and therefore enjoyable. And it's like, okay, anyway, I could go on, but bear with me here. What is the 30-second note method? Before I give you that, I want to give you a little bit of background to get you fired up about it. I learned about it about 1.5 years ago in a random article, or I shouldn't say random article, it's an article, but it's just an article that I stumbled upon on a Coursera class that I was taking at the time. And it talks about this man who's not a celebrity, but he's friends with a lot of celebrities. And this guy, he's well liked, he's very well respected, but he doesn't want to be like, hey, everybody look at me, I want everybody to know my name, I want to take the attention for myself. That's not just who he is. But the author of this article was going to this gathering, this little party, shindig, cocktail party type deal that this guy was hosting, and that, of course, there are a few celebrities in attendance, and so the author is kind of the author of the article is a little bit starstruck. There's like, oh wow, like I can't believe I'm here, like this is awesome. And this guy, the host, is just going around, bouncing around to the different conversations, and he's a present participant mainly by being a very active listener, which is something that I think all of us can enjoy and something that I think most of us can do a better job of being an active listener. But every now and then, anyway, he opens his mouth and he chimes in. And when he opens his mouth, people listen because they know that this is a very insightful person that they can learn a lot from. So they know that they want to hear what he has to say, if that makes sense. And the 30-second note method is one of his biggest pieces of advice. And it's so simple. Basically, after an interesting lecture, a fascinating meeting, reading a fascinating chapter of a book, listening to a great podcast, or just having a conversation with a close friend or family member, and you learn something, you just hear something that you want to remember because you found it interesting. It could be literally just in any scenario. You just learn something that you found interesting. Write it down. The trick is immediately. And the reason that it's a 30-second note method is because it doesn't have to take long. I personally have my journal. I call it I shouldn't say I got the idea from somebody else, but it's a what's going well journal. Basically, I'll write down 3 things that are going well. It's kind of like a gratitude journal, but it could also be challenges or just goals that I want to set for myself, just really anything going on in my life right now. I'll just kind of document it, and then just super quickly, just 3 things, and then I'll get into my 30-second notes. I'll write down 30SN 30-second note, and then I'll write down a few of the things that I've learned in the last few days that I found super interesting that I want to remember, if that makes sense. And it's great because it's like, oh man, what was that thing that I want to remember? What was that? And then you're kind of going, you're challenging your brain's working harder, and then you finally remember it, and then that's a very helpful step in the learning process right there. And then when you write it down, it's more solidified. You're more likely to remember it later. And like I said at the very beginning of the video, memorization is so key to learning because you can't learn without it. And then for example, have you ever just been going about your day, you're maybe in the shower, you're taking a walk, you're just doing homework, you're really just doing anything, and then a random thought pops in your head and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty good. I kind of want to remember that, but then you completely forget about it. So that happens to me. That's why I started a just random thoughts note page on my phone. So sometimes I'll just jot down these random thoughts on my phone and then maybe translate it to my 30-second notes journal later. Anyway, That is the point right there. And I'll tell you what, it is so simple, but it's changed my life. I implemented it ever since I've read that article. And I don't do it every day, but I try to do it at least weekly, maybe a couple times a week. For example, really just anything that I'm like, oh man, I want to journal about this. I want to write it down because it's something interesting that I want to remember. And most of the things that I'll journal that I kind of have a greater unconscious sense of, because it's just like, oh, I've spent some extra time studying it and actually writing it down. But also a lot of the ideas that I talk about in my Bucks Bites videos are when I'm going back to my 30-second notes journal and I'll find something interesting and be like, oh wow, I forgot about that. That's a note that I wrote down 8 months ago. It's cash money. I want to write about it. I want to make a video about it, I should say. For example, you're probably wondering, why in the world is this video entitled Sun, Coffee, and Pancakes? And it's because, well, one of my most recent 30-second notes journals was about, I read in a newsletter that in Iceland, the country, from mid-November to mid-January, they go about a full 60-day stretch of basically never seeing the sun ever. Like they don't see the sun, it's just darkness. And then, so every year on January 25th, they have a awesome tradition called Sun, Coffee, and Pancakes, where they'll just go outside and enjoy the sun, and everybody drinks their coffee while they eat pancakes for breakfast, and everybody's laughing, telling stories, just enjoying the moment, enjoying the beautiful sunshine around them that they haven't been able to celebrate for so long. And it's like, oh my gosh, what an amazing, simple yet powerful tradition. On a side note, gosh, never underestimate the value of traditions and annual or even daily rituals that you might be able to implement. But it's like, gosh, I just write about that. I'm like, I want to write that down. Let's just go ahead and write that down. And then I'm going through it. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to make this video entitled like, 30-second note method, something boring. Let's do Sun, Coffee, and Pancakes, something a little funnier, a little more random, maybe adds a sense of mystery, like, oh, what's this video gonna be about? Anyway, you get the point. I've gone on for so long, I can't believe it's already been 7 minutes. I'm telling you, when I get in these videos, I just kind of get in a trance, I lose sense of time, I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know what I'm saying, I don't know how long it's been, so I'll let you get going. Thank you so much for listening. I'm telling you, it might not, this is one of those videos that just kind of plants a seed, where it's like, oh, you're probably not gonna start a 30-second note-taking routine tomorrow, but man, I'm telling you, years down the road, you might be like, wow, I just remember that Bucks Bites video, Sun, Coffee, and Pancakes, and I just learned something fascinating and I want to write it down. And then you're going to keep doing it because you find that it's such a beneficial yet simple practice. So with that, I'll let you get going. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening. If you made it this way, oh my gosh, you're truly a rock star. I appreciate you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.